Let's look at the connection between belief, thought, and feeling, or in this case, belief, thought, and fear. So here's one scenario. If you believe that in 1 minute something horrible will happen to you that is highly painful and out of your control and will last a long time, and let's say you're tied to a railroad track. You're stake in the ground, bound, tied up, train's coming. You believe, it hasn't hit yet, but you believe it is going to hit you. And you believe that when it does, it's going to feel terrible. Now, typically, most people are not going to relax and surrender and open up and imagine, look at the bright sky at that time. They're going to tense for the pain. They're going to react to the pain. They're going to be afraid of the pain. What does it feel like to be hit by a train while strapped to a steel pole? Will one get dragged under the train? Will one? What's going to happen? How painful is it going to be? And that is correlated with fear. Now, we might say this is a reasonable fear, meaning we're all afraid of pain, and reason dictates that if no one's in sight, I can't get off the pole, I've been trying for 2 hours, and a train is coming at 150 miles an hour and cannot stop, reason says that in a few more seconds, I'm going to experience a large amount of pain that's out of my control. So we would call that a reasonable fear, meaning it is based on reason. I am afraid of pain, and it looks like it's going to happen. Now, that is a belief that is leading to fear, based on what? A belief in the future. This is a belief in physics. Trains this heavy don't slow down that fast. And if they did, it might be worse. Because if you're killed instantly by a train moving at 150 miles an hour, that could be better than killed at 25 miles an hour and just scrunched into the pole. So it's not even a basis to be hopeful if the train slows down. Maybe that's worse, right? So it's a reasonable fear based on a belief in the future that has its belief in habits, meaning heavy objects have always taken a while to slow down. Metal objects hitting skin. Who's to say this might not be your lucky day? Maybe this day, metal hitting skin feels wonderful. But the belief is in habits, meaning 99.9% of the time, metal hitting skin feels terrible. Being tied to a train track, particularly when it's been done maliciously, who else ties someone on a train, railroad track? This is not something to look forward to. So this is how belief creates fear, and what you're afraid of is the pain that you're expecting in the future. Now, there are other things, which is that pain creates belief, meaning if you've watched a few movies of people being run over by trains, if you've read the literature in your cult that says that science is the most reliable thing out there, well, if you believe that, then you want to learn what the scientists say. And so if the scientists say that an object this big at this speed on railroad tracks takes, at least 3 miles to slow down, and it's that train, well, you can see how reality creates belief meaning somebody told you and another person told you and another person told you that science knows what it's talking about. And you've had experience, and so reality leads to belief, but then belief leads to feelings. So you've had enough experience with objects or with people or whatever it is to anticipate that this is a likely outcome. And because the outcome is not what you want it to be, there's a gap. I want it to be over here, but it's over here. Now, the bigger the gap, the more pain there is. I want my thumb to be attached here, but my thumb is attached way over here. It's not attached here, it's severed, it's over here. It's miles away. Well, that's even worse than if it's a foot away, because then you couldn't put it on ice and have it stitched back on, right? So I want this, but I'm far away from it. Here's what I want. Here's what I've got. The gap in between is pain. Now, as you're entering a reality where you have some contextual experience, you have the sense of a probability. I really want to date this girl, and the likelihood that this kind of girl is going to be interested in my presenting persona is, 5%? Well, I want it to be 100%, it's 5%. So there's a 95% gap in probability. Well, one generally doesn't feel all excited about a 95% chance of losing, of failing. One starts to feel a bit depressed almost before the get-go. You might even say, what's the point? Why bother being humiliated when there's a 95% chance that that's what's going to happen? Now, there's this thing called playing or losing to win, where, for example, you might say, well, I'm not losing because I'm practicing initiating. And I'm not losing because I may not have gotten this person right. Meaning I don't want to date a bitch. I don't want to date a sociopath. I don't want to date someone who is cruel and abuses power. I don't want to date someone who's an idiot either. So assuming that this person is intelligent and assuming that they're attractive and they know it because they're intelligent, then they also know that it doesn't feel good to be rejected. They understand the terrain, and they're not going to abuse their power. The kind of person that I want to date is tactful, intelligent, and kind around this type of situation. So I'm going to win with a 95% chance of losing, both because my goal is to practice initiation, to practice articulation. I'm doing both. And I also want to see what kind of woman this is. I want to see if I actually missed out or not. Now, if she treats me really well and lets me down easy, my respect for her will go up, and I'll have more awareness that I actually want to date her. And I can take steps after that. But if she treats me poorly, I will also win because I will know that she's not the kind of person that I want as a long-term partner. Why? Because the reason she will treat me poorly if she does is that she believes I cannot be used, meaning she's seeing me in a different rank, at a different echelon in the school or collegial politics, for example. And so if that's her case, then she's going to be more honest with me. Because if I'm the hottest guy on the football team, then she may not be honest with me. she may play the popularity game to have personal advantage. But in a situation where I have low rank in the cult politics, she will be herself because she doesn't perceive a way to use me. Meaning, this is a great opportunity for me to see who she is, politics aside. Who's the real her? And if the real her is a sociopathic bitch who uses people and discards them when they're not usable, well, then I don't want to date someone who thinks so little of themselves. Because people who use other people also use themselves. And people who use themselves do so because they do not believe in their innate value, usually because they've been abused. And so that's not a good that's not a good map for a partnership. So I'm going to win because if she treats me like shit, I will know that I don't want to waste my time with her anyway. And secondly, I'll also be able to know that my algorithm for choosing is off. Because if I'm attracted to her, it's because I think I could have an enjoyable relationship with her. You cannot have a long-term enjoyable relationship with someone who is sociopathic, usurious, and dishonest. Has two faces for a game that is narcissistically oriented. You have no love there. That person is incapable of love. They cannot love themselves truly because you don't use people. You don't use yourself for popularity out of self-love. So I'm going to win anyway. And so I'm going to win by learning who she is. And you see, if she's really intelligent and she's not usurious, meaning she's authentic, then maybe she's authentic enough to see through the cult mirage of ranking, to understand that every individual is unique, and compatibility and chemistry and value are also unique. And so she may have the humility, seeing beyond the cult mirage, to understand that someone who is low ranking in the cult might be the most valuable person to them personally in terms of their ability to leverage the situation to create maximal well-being with a given unit of energy. So I could win that way as well. So this is a good strategy for, navigating around fear, is figure out ways to win while you're losing. Meaning I win by understanding that she's a sociopathic bitch and I don't want to date her. I win by understanding that she's intelligent and I do want to date her and she treats me well, which confirms that I want to date her. I win by practicing initiation. And I may also add in a curveball win. I may decide to initiate in a way that I've never initiated before. In other words, to test market an initiation. For example, if I'm getting bored with coffee dates, I might initiate a conscious peak experience. I may approach someone and say, how would you like to have a peak experience? And how would you like to spend some time designing and choreographing that peak experience together? Now, this is valuable because it requires me to think. It expands my sense of possibility. It gives the other person a choice they've never been given in their lives. No one is going to ask them in their entirety of their lives, how would you like to design a peak experience for your first date? No one ever has asked them that. No one will ask them that again. So you also get to learn about the person and say, you know what? They handled that very well. For example, I learned about Russians. Russians, statistically speaking, respond to that question, 30 times more intelligently than Americans. That's the odds, because I asked 300 people, and a small sampling of these were Russians. And it's like this small sampling of Russians were enthusiastic about the idea and just really went to town with it and created amazing experiences. Most of the Americans weren't interested. And so you learn something about a culture based on how it responds to a specific thing. I didn't know Russians were unique in their interest in novel experiences that are intelligent, meaning it's an intelligent invitation to have a peak experience rather than a coffee date. Because if you are intelligent, you would rather have a peak experience than a coffee date. It's also novel in terms of none of these Russians had ever been asked that, and none of these Americans had ever been asked that. So it's novel. And so when someone is enthusiastic about a novel and intelligent idea, it speaks to their intelligence and their ability to diverge from the norm. So I learned, there's ways to win through losing. And this is a good response to fear. If you're afraid of being rejected because you view that rejection is losing, you have not expanded the idea of how big of a win is available. Because if you become a more articulate, more intelligent, more creative, more initiatory, more confident individual, you're not losing at all. The person who doesn't date you may lose, because that's a phenomenal person and a rare person to be around. But you're not losing. You're growing every single time. You're building a muscle that pretty soon is going to give you the skills to take off in a way that very few people can. But you're playing a different game. You're winning at a different game, a game that you've created that you can't lose. Now, that's an intelligent game to play. Now, you can lose parts of the game, but you win the entire game as you become the kind of person that you want to be. So to summarize, beliefs create feelings, including fear. Circumstance and data, when intelligently aligned in a projection of a future, creates belief or expectation. I expect pain will come in this form based on my knowledge of momentum, trajectory, and patterns. Now, changing the belief is not necessarily a good idea. Believing that a train hitting you at 150 miles an hour is going to feel euphoric does not necessarily reduce the amount of pain of being hit by a train at 150 miles an hour. But it could lead to apathy in the last few seconds of trying to get off a track. Maybe if you wrenched hard enough, you would get off. And if you lied and said, I believe this is going to feel great, you'd have no reason to. So beliefs can serve you when they are aligned with data and thus accurately predict the future. And as part of the data alignment, there is an accurate correlation with pain. Now, it's very important to understand that the imagination is not accurately aligned with data in many ways, Many people think, for example, that if I had my arm amputated, I would have a miserable life. But you can find very happy amputees who, sure, they went through, months of pain and hardship as there was the amputation and adjustment and this, but now they're as happy as they ever were. Other people think that winning the lottery is going to make them happy for the rest of their lives. It doesn't. In many cases, after 5 years, lottery winners are more miserable than before they won the lottery, because the cult lies and says that having lots of money will make you happy, which when you don't have lots of money is just fine, because you can pretend, if only I had lots of money, then I would be happy, and making lots of money is not that hard, meaning it's far more difficult to invent a space company or invent LED technology or any number of things is far more difficult. Get someone who hates you to love you a lot. I mean, these are challenging things. Working hard and working smart and making yourself useful for someone and making money is not that hard. That's really what you want to do. You just dedicate to yourself, and it's, we're a capitalist cult. We're able and willing to give lots of people chances to make lots of money. So if you make lots of money, though, and you discover you're not very happy after hedonic adaptation is worn off, now you're screwed, because now you've got nothing to look forward to. So, lottery winners have lived out the delusion that says, if only I won the lottery, I would loan you $1 million, I would fix this, I wouldn't ask you to do this, I would buy all your groceries, I would do all these things if I won the lottery, right? So now they have to do all these things, and now there's more people after their money, and then they go bankrupt because they don't know how to manage their money, and then they realize the whole thing was horrible. And so now they're stuck because the cult still lies and says if you make lots of money, if you win the lottery, you'll be happy, but now you know it's a lie. So you don't want to buy more lottery tickets because it's miserable winning the lottery, statistically speaking, and it's not going to solve any of your underlying issues, any of your self-esteem or any of this and that and the other. It's not going to sort that out. So if you have beliefs that are accurately aligned with data and motivate you to prepare and relate to reality in such a way as to minimize pain, like if you know that jumping off a bridge hurts 99% of the time, and you therefore don't jump off of the bridge because you're afraid of the pain, that can be incredibly useful as preemptively avoiding pain. If, on the other hand, your beliefs are imaginatively based, are based on delusions, then you can cause yourself lots of unnecessary pain while believing that you are being intelligent in your avoidance of pain, and as a result, your beliefs can be the biggest single cause of self-perpetuating pain over time in your reality.